for all to see. The signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away. Like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. The ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.
There we are. Hello there.
Welcome to me.
My browser decided not to play the intro, and I didn't know what was going on, and I had to look online and realised it was actually the intro was still playing. So it's just done that to me a couple of times now. So I don't know why my browser's playing little games on me every now and then. But there we are. We are live by the look of it. I'm just wait for some comments to get flicked in to make sure that we're all ticking along there on our Rumbles and on the X's and the YouTubes and all that sort of fun stuff. But anyway, and had some nice bit of rain over the weekend. We were just discussing beautiful rain, and wherever you might be tickling in from, let us know if you've had some nice autumn rain or even spring rain if you're tuning in from another country, another area, which I guess, that'd be nice. Susie, hello. Happy Recovery Monday. Apologies for last show. I was in Perth. Oh, well, that's okay. Yeah. What do you mean? You could have got the family on to watch the show, Susie. What? You could have got. What do you reckon?
Quite.
I hear Perth. I hear WA's started waking up a little bit with everything that's going on. Or are they still under the kind of bit of communist rule there over there? I'm not sure. I haven't really kept too much track of what's going over there in WA.
I think they're down to the last state premier from the COVID tyranny still left, Mark McGowan.
Oh, he's still over there. Holy dooly. Jeez, and it's really weird, because I think the WA situation over there was a real test case because they locked down early and everything, and wasn't anything going on there, and then they just vaccinated. So it was a real good test case when they locked all the borders in and out, and still had a leap up in COVID.
Yeah, there were quite a few places in the southern hemisphere which were great test cases for the safety of the vaxxers, because we really had a significant size of vaccinated population before we had a significant hit from the virus, which means we knew what the vax was doing. You can't say, oh, that was, COVID done that. Early on, there was very little COVID. Not that I believe locking the country down was the cause for that. I think it was seasonal instead. But we ran a nice little natural experiment by vaccinating everybody before the virus, and saw the increases in death rates, which clearly couldn't be attributed to COVID because we really didn't have many cases to start with.
Yep. Amazing how those test cases work. And apparently down there at Shoalhaven, down in Nowra, I remember that area nice. When I used to live in New South Wales, I used to frequently visit that in the old days, in my old Torrey, my old V8 Tirana, the old two-door.
Oh,
nice.
Nice.
Yes.
Can we go back to those days?
Oh, that'd be lovely. And I really kick myself for not keeping it now. It was just a really silly reason to get rid of it. I'll have to bring up some photos one day of my little collection of Tiranas, my little 4-doors and 2-doors. Yes.
Anyway. But I mean, look at you now. You got a 300,000 kilometre Hyundai.
yeah, good little car. Although there's nothing like the burble of a V8 when you're just cruising down, on a nice sunny day and you're cruising down the coast. And nothing like that. But that's okay.
Absolutely.
Those days, maybe one day. But anyway, let's get the show on the road. I'm not sure how much you've got, if you've got another bumper one, but we'll just go. I've just got a couple of little updates that I wanted to share with the audience, in case they haven't come across it yet. And we'll just get into it. What do you reckon?
She'll be a 2-hour, I think.
All right. Sounds about our audience is pretty used to that kind of time frame, Bruce. So I think we should be right. So yep, beautiful. Yes, what have we got here? Yep, Bellarine Peninsula today. Lovely. There you go. All right, let's. Here we go. I wanted to start off with this is getting a lot of news and traction in the alternative media and that as well. Been sharing a fair bit as well. Is the ASIO bill, which is getting quite a bit of traction. And the great people at Stand Up Australia. As you know, I'm with Australians for Better Government. We put a media release out about this as well. But the great team at Stand Up Australia have got our great South Australian Michael Arbin being joined by Robert Barwick in a conversation about the ASIO bill. So that's coming out. You can get the tickets on Human Ticks. It's an online event. It's free. You just get your tickets so they know who's going. So they're going to talk into that. So obviously the Australian government is moving to make some of ASIO's most extraordinary compulsory questioning powers permanent. These powers were originally introduced as temporary measures following 9/11, with sunset clauses designed to ensure they would not become a permanent part of Australian law without ongoing parliamentary scrutiny. Now, through the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation Amendment Bill number 2, 2025, those same powers are being positioned to permanent continuation. This raises serious questions for every Australian. When do temporary emergency powers become normalised? What protections remain when extraordinary powers lose their sunset clause? How do we balance genuine national security needs with civil liberties and democratic accountability? If these powers are used so rarely, why should they become permanent? So join Michael and Robert, and they'll cover what the ASIO Amendment Bill actually changes, the history of the powers since 2003, why sunset clauses matter, civil liberty concerns and parliamentary oversight, how major parties and crossbench senators are positioning themselves, what Australians should be asking their representatives now. So I've shared a little bit about that, Bruce, on my social medias. There's a link to the Human Ticks. People can check it out. They've also got some good resources, some flyers and that. So Stand Up Australia is doing some great stuff. They've been doing some great stuff for a while as well, sharing that stuff around. So that's with Michael Arbin. I've got a lot of time for Michael as well. I think a lot of people will get to know Michael. He's getting out there quite a bit more in his commentary as well. So now the other thing, there was on my recent newsletter from FCP, I did also put a YouTube link from an ex police prosecutor, and that talked into the correlation between this ASIO bill and the Anti-Semitism Royal Commission and stuff as well. So it's just definitely stuff to be aware of, how all these things tie together, because let me tell you, these people aren't going to relent from the COVID era, and we just need to be on our guard and aware of what's going on and what these people are planning. So they aren't going away in a big hurry.
And I can answer I can answer very simply. When do these powers become permanent?
Mm-hmm.
Every single time is when they become permanent.
Yeah, exactly right, mate. Exactly. Yeah. And so another one thing I wanted to share is I shared this in the past, this information, and I've put it around on my socials. This is on my X, but I put it on Facebook as well. But I've shared it. It got cancelled. This is an event for the vaccination conversation, and a lot of these familiar faces there, people would know as well. Philip Altman and Dr. Julie Williman as well. So just wanted to let you know about that. And there's a scan code you can scan on there to register, and that's through TicketBow. And that's Wendy Daniel as well, vaccine author and researcher. So that is held in Canberra. So people, that's at Awaken Church, Canberra, 499 Solwood Drive, Canberra, ACT. There's a bit of a flyer there. It's got a QR code there. So if you jump on my socials, I'll see if I can, while Bruce is talking, I might see if I can chuck a couple of links into the chat as well, so people can follow those as well. But there's a QR code. If people do want to just scan that, if they want to, can always rewind this and you can scan that code. So great people, should be an interesting conversation. Hopefully they get a full house. They deserve it. Amazing people. Dr. Philip Altman spoke out earlier. I've interviewed him. I've interviewed Dr. Julie Williman as well. Amazing Australians, and obviously, you know, Wendy Daniel, vaccine author and researcher. I haven't been too much aware about Wendy, but anyway, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a good conversation there. And The other thing I wanted to talk about, as I share this stuff quite a bit, this has been shared by a friend here in South Australia, Angela Rojas, doing great work in regard. She's a book reviewer, for guidelines around, video and book ratings. And she's doing quite a bit, but this is a recent thing that's come out from her Australia. The Department of Education are spending $77.6 million to teach your children about sexual pleasure. Now, we've spoken about this before, about sexual education from the WHO and the WEF, and this is all tied in. But just wanted to read this quickly. This, I'll see if I can get that up a bit bigger. I'm not sure if I can, but I'll see if I can read it for you. This is actually Respectful Relationships Education in Australia. And I'll just read this little bit here if I can. It says, a need to address really positive things around sexuality, and particularly issues like pleasure and how to be a good lover. Now, this is all stuff that's been targeted towards kids. And I'll see if I can read a bit more. This is probably a bit bigger there. In addition, stakeholders emphasise the importance of embedding respectful relationships in a way that is meaningful for young people and covers related issues such as sexual pleasure for our young people. I'm sorry, but you people are pedophiles. That's all you are. That's I don't care how you want to wrap it up or whatever. This reflects the views of scholars such as Carmody 2009, whose research found that young people need to contextualise sexual consent, for example, in the context of sex, gender and sexual pleasure, to understand and explore sexual consent in any meaningful and relevant way. Stakeholders' recommendations align with current international guidance, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organisation, UNESCO, 2018, and the updated Australian curriculum, which clearly see relationships and sexuality as the focus area for respectful relationships in all year levels from foundation to year 10. So I don't think we want to mince our words in regards to any of that. These people are trying to sexualise our children. They're trying to normalise this BS, and it's coming all the way from the top of these United Nations and UNESCO and WHO and WEF and all these sorts of places. So as far as I'm concerned, they're pedophiles. Keep your children away. Keep away from our children, and parents need to be aware of what they're trying to teach, desensitise and normalise this crap.
And did you say that this starts at the foundation level? Is that what year one is?
Yeah, reception year one, foundation. Yep.
So
I mean, yep. Go.
Are we going to hold this in the library at the same time as Transgender Story Hour?
Yeah, Rainbow's story time. Yeah, maybe Bruce. Yeah, that's pretty what we're gearing up for. Now they claim that obviously it's going to be age related and all this sort of stuff. I'm sorry, but no kids, at least before the age of 16. I mean, we say 18. They're adults, but should be getting taught any of this sort of stuff about. When we learnt it was a physical education, and health studies was really about a bit of anatomy, and that was it. The differences between boys and girls and all that sort of stuff. None of this. You need to be able to feel pleasure as a kindergartner. But anyway, yes, this is the world we're living in, Bruce. This is where it's all going. So pedos, as far as I'm concerned. And lastly, I hope without a gazump strike, Bruce, I hope I'm not gazumping. But Michael Arbon, another one, shared this post here in regards to SA to dish out on-the-spot fines for fuel breaches under new emergency powers if fuel crisis worsens. The laws enable on-the-spot fines for people who breach rationing rules, allow penalties to be issued to the owners of vehicles used in a breach, and permit the seizure of fuel obtained unlawfully. The updated legislation will also allow courts to impose imprisonment of up to 3 years in cases where workers in the petroleum supply chain, including service station console operators and tank drivers, are assaulted, threatened or intimidated during an emergency. So this is from Michael Arbon as well, and I'm not going to read the whole lot because I was almost feel that I've risked a gazump strike if you've come across this story out of South Australia, but I'm not
you're good. Although you did remind me that a few shows ago, friend of the channel, Dr. Dan, he made a comment when I said that I thought the Middle East crisis was going to get a lot worse, and that rationing and so forth would come in. Well, friend of the channel, Dan, said that I'd been predicting the next set of lockdowns for about 4 years. Well, watch this space, Dan. Did you just see what Peter Malinauskas had to say?
Well, they're working on it in every aspect, Bruce. It's really just like they planned the COVID stuff pretty well, over a period of time, and they just bide their time, and they incrementally, that way the 80% of useful BAS aren't scared off with their plans. But anyway, there we go. We continue to try and do what we can to hopefully make people more aware about the sinister plans of the people that believe they have the control over the 8 billion people, and which at this stage they do, I guess. But I think there's some cracks starting to come in the dam.
Peter Malinauskas better not be turning up at my door with an empty jerry can saying he wants to drain it out of my car as a emergency measure, or there might be a little bit of pushback, mate.
Well, Bruce, people like Peter Malinauskas and his family won't be needing to ask anybody. They live in a different realm, I believe, and I'm not taking anything away from people being successful, but him and his wife being on a very, very good wicket, and I guess they've put themselves in that position good. But it's as I've said before, it's the lower income earners, the middle income earners that are the ones that are going to face the biggest issues with everything that's been done by our governments, because I believe the government ministers and their families are well positioned to ride through any struggles that these people and the decisions that these people make over society. So it's usually the low and middle income earners that are going to struggle the most.
Also known as us peasants.
Yep, exactly. So anyway, that's it for me, brother. I just wanted to give people a bit of an update about a couple of things that are on there, not to take too much of the spotlight from the actual presenter. So there we go. We're over to you. We're over to you, brother Bruce.
Good. Oh, right, there we go. Okay, number 106.
Yeah, here we are.
Wonder how many views we've had over the 106. Got any ideas?
I haven't added it up. I haven't made time. It's probably been a few though.
I think Chloe gives us 3, 4, 5K each week, because there was 6.5 a couple of weeks ago, which was one of the bigger ones. But you stream to quite a few other platforms, don't you?
Yeah, got it on X. Although X does push back a little bit, doesn't give me a lot. I think it's probably they want me to stream on their service. And as you know, I was streaming to Facebook when I had 7,000 followers on there, but they nuked that account, so I had to start all over again, and it's taken a little while to get back up. But I've got stuff going on TikTok and Insta and little shorts here and there and stuff like that, re-upload stuff. So yeah, between the YouTube and the Rumbles, and yeah, I don't know, maybe 10K plus an episode easy, I guess. But
So if it's 10K a week, that's 1 million views, isn't it?
Oh, would be, I guess, over the period of time. Yeah, yep.
That's a bit sobering, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, onwards and upwards. We just keep going. As you've always said, Bruce, as long as we have one viewer watching, you'll continue to try and share the knowledge and what we can do. So there you go.
If I can bail one person up and lecture them, then my happiness is complete.
Yeah, that's it. Yep, exactly right. But anyway, I'm really grateful for all the people that continue to jump on a weekly basis, all the people that continue to share comments in the chat as well and interact with us and stuff like that. So we have got quite a few people that really love what you bring, Bruce, and they're committed to join at 5 o'clock on a Monday when it's sort of dinner time or finish work time and all that sort of stuff. And I know that people have got the opportunity to review as well, rewatch it. So but anyway, it's good.
Good. Oh, well, let's give them a show then.
Let's do this.
So a little bit of a different start this week, because I needed to, because a horrific diplomatic gaffe took place in the United States a week ago. And that was during the visit of our king. And this story documents it, because at one of the official functions, the official flag of the United Kingdom, the Union Jack, was apparently flown upside down.
Oh dear. Maybe they knew something. Have they been
Look,
watching the show, Bruce?
I didn't even know it was possible to fly the Union Jack upside down. Did you know that?
No, because you look at it and you go, well, how could it be flown upside down when it's just like is it symmetrical? I would have thought it was symmetrical.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because apparently you can. And
Oh,
here's what happened. So apparently, if you look at the Union Jack, whilst it's run up the flagpole, on the side where the pole is, the red diagonals are supposed to be lower, so that the thicker part of the white cross, which is the Scottish cross, is more above than below the red cross. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
And this is very important, because this symbolises that Scotland joined the Union before Northern Ireland did. So this was a grievous insult to the Scots, really.
Yes. Interesting.
It is interesting, isn't it? And it sort of set me on a bit of a tangent, and I know I'll shock you by saying that. So it just made me ask myself, okay, what is this United Kingdom thing? What are the countries that make up the flag of the UK, and how does that all work?
Oh, I'm really glad you did this research. I'm really glad you did this digging. You know why I am glad, aren't you, Bruce? You know why I'm glad you did this digging.
Yeah, because you want to duck out for 5 minutes, I bet.
No, because it's like further sort of delving into a Christian root and heritage of the Union Jack.
The Crusaders, of course. Okay, so the flag there, the Union Jack, is the flag of the United Kingdom. It's not the flag of England. It's in fact the flag of the 4 countries that make up the United Kingdom. And that's England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. And yes, these are all regarded as countries. And I'm going to talk to that in the next few slides, because there's a few oddities regarding them all as countries. But I do remember back when I was a junior doctor asking a couple of registrars. I was working in the intensive care at the time, and there was a rule at the time that every ICU in the world had to have an Irish registrar, which ours did, of course, but also had a Scot and an Englishman. And I remember saying at one point, what is this with, the United Kingdom? Is Scotland a country? And before the Scot registrar could actually answer, the Englishman butted in and said, they like to think so. So anyway, the 4 countries which are represented in the Union Jack are the countries of the United Kingdom, and it's England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. And I think it's a real shame that of those 4 countries, the one which has far and away got the best flag is, of course, Wales. And they aren't represented on that flag, even though they are represented by that flag. And the reason for that is when the flag was developed, designed, whatever word you want to use, Wales was still regarded as a part of England. It's now regarded as a separate entity, but that's the reason why. I guess that's a dragon, isn't it? Wouldn't that be fabulous if you could put that dragon in the centre there? Wouldn't that make that flag so much better?
It'd be pretty solid, wouldn't it? It'd be a pretty solid flag.
Anyhow, now the reason I sort of was scratching my head a bit, and I've covered this previously, but there's something very odd about the 4 countries of the United Kingdom, because they sort of are and sort of aren't countries if you look at their behaviour in the world. So, for example, at the Olympics, you never see England, you never see Scotland, you never see Northern Ireland, and you never see Wales. So these are all countries, but they never compete as individual countries at the Olympics. They compete as a combined entity called Great Britain. Now, notice I said Great Britain, which is still not the same as what we were just talking about, which was the United Kingdom. So, like I say, the plot thickens. And so I asked myself, okay, what is Great Britain? So Great Britain is not the same as the UK. It's not quite the same as the United Kingdom. So Great Britain includes the 3 countries, if you like, of mainland Britain. So you've got the large countries. So you've got Scotland, England, and Wales, but Northern Ireland is not regarded as part of Great Britain. It's getting complicated, isn't it?
What is that?
Yes. And in fact, it's even worse because if you're an athlete from Northern Ireland, which is one of the 4 countries of the UK, you have to choose. You can either compete in the Olympics under the Great Britain banner, or you can compete under the Olympic Federation of Ireland banner. And the Olympic Federation of Ireland is athletes from North or Republic of Ireland. So it's all rather complicated and doesn't make sense to me. And here's one reason why it doesn't make sense, because England is a country. No one would argue that. The population of England is significantly larger than the population of Australia or New Zealand or Andorra or Bermuda or any of the myriad of tiny countries that go to the Olympics with two athletes, one carrying the flag and one not when they march in. So England is a country, and if you want proof of that, the only entities that play Test cricket are countries, and England definitely plays Test cricket. So no doubt about it, England is a country. And of course, when you step down a level, when you step down to the Commonwealth Games, you don't see Team GB. It's not Great Britain that's competing at the Commonwealth Games. You go along representing your country, whatever of the 4 countries of the United Kingdom. You go as representing England or Scotland or Wales or Northern Ireland. So it's all very confusing, but I think this slide actually starts to give us the answer as to why the Great Britain team turns up at the Olympics, but England, Scotland, Wales, etc., turn up at the Commonwealth Games. And it's because England can't compete with Australia at Olympic level, but they can compete at Commonwealth level. So in the age-old rivalry, Australia-England, at the Commonwealth Games, they're usually not too far apart. Whereas if you go to the Olympics, Great Britain struggles to match England, even when you've added in those other 2 countries, maybe 3. So I think it's pretty clear to me that the reason you federate, you put together 4 countries of the UK and call them Great Britain at the Olympics, is it's cheating. The British are using this as a performance-enhancing technique to give them a higher medal count at the Olympics. So this is simply an illegal form of performance enhancement, which they have to do, otherwise they're going to get beaten by Australia every time.
Well, there you go.
So that's my take on that.
They wouldn't make that team there at all.
But back to the Union Jack, and I'm very pleased to see that in your opening graphic, you've actually got the flag the right way around. And in fact, it would be very difficult to get it the wrong way around on the Australian flag, because that's all made up as one. So unless the manufacturer of the flag put the Union Jack in the wrong way around, it's pretty much impossible to get that one wrong in our case, because of the rest of the flag that gives it an up-down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So congratulations, you've got it wrong, even though the protocol officers got it. So you got it right, whereas the protocol officers got it wrong in the United States the other day. And I'm pleased to say that I've also got it right, because I'm intentionally flying it wrong. I fly my flag upside down as a symbol of distress, and we've discussed that previously. So we are both getting it right as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, that's right. Yes, exactly right.
So having covered that very important clarification or diplomatic gaffe, let's move on to the actual slide. Okay, so what are we doing this week? So we're going to do some updates. So the interim Bondi Royal Commission report is out, and fairly quickly, only took about 5 months. And I guess they didn't need to take long because they already knew what it was going to say. Guns, 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 guns is the problem.
My hop.
Are you surprised, Mark?
No, we know it was a. We're speculating as a my hop.
Yes, exactly. Or at least
they knew what they were doing. Yeah, lie hop or my hop.
For those who don't know, a my hop, I make it happen on purpose, and a lie hop, I let it happen on purpose. It's where governments either maneuver other entities into attacking them or allow them. So reference the Pearl Harbor attack. Japan was maneuvered into attacking Pearl Harbor. And, of course, the October 7 Hamas attacks from Gaza into Israel, they were both facilitated by the victim governments for their own political purposes. Second part in the updates, the RSL have proven that they are political rather than veterans organisations because they've used a time-honoured tactic here. They've responded to the criticism about Welcome to Country on Anzac Day by announcing a review.
Well, there you go.
What's the bet? We'll never hear any result from that review. Contrast it to the Bondi Royal Commission, which came out very quickly because they wanted certain findings to come out.
Yeah.
And we've got a little bit on the Gulf War, which still simmers on. Not much change. Not easy being green. Poor old Incat in Tasmania, who make aluminium hulled catamarans, are unable to send their latest ship over to South America to start working because it's only got a range of 90 minutes. It's an electric ferry. And
can they put a diesel generator on to power the bloody electric ferry?
You know, well, I wonder if they'll end up doing that. Stick the car deck full of great big diesel jennies. That's a great idea, Mark. You're brilliant.
Or use a bloody diesel punt boat to bloody drag.
Or tug. Use a diesel tug. Anyway, the reason their plans have gone awry is because they had a heavy lift ship booked to transport it, and that ship's stuck in the Gulf of Hormuz.
Oh dear.
So it's stuck in there and can't get out.
Oh dear.
We've got a bit of health this week, so hopefully friend of the channel, Dan, will be back. But I had another attempt at putting in some eye-opening comments to the Advertiser newspaper when they did a story finally about a person who was injured by a vaccine. And I had 3 goes, and no, they're still censoring. You can't say anything. Even though they put a story in about vaccine injuries, you couldn't put any comments in that suggested vaccines might cause injuries.
What would you know, Bruce?
On to money and finance. Well, what would I know? Well, I've never read anything about it in the newspapers, that's for sure.
That's exactly right. So you know more than the average punter, eh?
On to money and finance. So the Greens are proving once again that they're watermelons, so communists on the inside, because they want to introduce price controls during the current fuel crisis. Vic government, which is probably the most left-wing government in Australia, they've hopped aboard. They're giving out all sorts of freebies to help us pay our bills, so car rego, public transport, etc. And in a completely unrelated story, apparently Victorian state debt is now at a record high.
Yeah, funny about that. Yes, all right. I'll just bloody pay more taxes, that's all, you know, just pay more taxes.
56% not enough for you, Mark?
No, and it's only going to get higher. We've seen that they've voted on the Aboriginal industry being able to run the state over there, so it'll only get higher when the reparations come and everything else like that.
Yep. And as predicted, the budget's coming and the Feds are sniffing around all investments for an increase in capital gains tax, not just property investments. And I flagged that previously. In order to prevent capital flight out of property investing sector, they've got to do the same thing to every sector. Otherwise, people just won't invest in properties anymore. Pretty obvious.
You know, it's funny about Victoria. You know, when I was talking to Dr. Christopher Reynolds, who wrote the book A Capital Idea, and interviewed him, is talking about, and I was sort of looking into it, where the states federated at the time. It was one of the reasons was Victoria was in debt all the way back then, and it was coming cap in hand to try and see how they could spread the debt over, you know, over different jurisdictions and that. So things haven't changed in a couple of 100 years, have they? Victoria still doesn't know how to spend the money wisely.
And I put Alana Lani's comment up there, 100%. So we got the Bondi Royal Commission, whether we wanted it or not, and we got the results within 5 months because that's what the government wanted, easy, hard matrix. Whereas didn't matter how many people wanted the COVID Royal Commission, was too hard, too expensive, couldn't do it. So, yeah, there you go.
Yep, exactly right. They don't want anything to do with any accountability from the COVID, because we know it was all a massive scam on the population, and they'll be looking, you know, Australians, the average Australian, will be looking to open up the gallows for politicians and bureaucrats that went along with and pushed all this stuff.
Yep. Fortunately, most of those bureaucrats would have taken the jabs themselves, so they'll be self-deleting in the future anyway. All right.
I don't know so much about that, but anyway.
Zombie stories. Your friend and mine, the Snowy Hydro scheme's blown out again. Current cost, 42 billion is the current estimate. And a reminder, that started in 2017 with a $2 billion estimate. Thank you, Malcolm Turnbull, and a 3-year completion window. Well, that's now blown out to what? Who knows when we'll finish. And from 2 billion out to 42 billion.
Yep, not surprised me. And anybody that wants to turn around and say that it was under the Liberal government with Malcolm Turnbull, I assert that Malcolm Turnbull is a red jacket anyway, incognito in the Liberal Party. He's no more Liberal than I am Green. So he's definitely Labor.
Yeah, he was a Labor plant, same as most of the Liberal Party, I'm sad to say.
Yep, 100%.
Yep. All right, and a new story in the returned stories. So a new report's come out that says heat waves are a real killer. And despite the data showing the opposite, that's the thing we've got to focus on now. Heat waves are killing us. I'm guessing there'll be some sort of save the planet solution there.
Well, it's all about what the media narrative is, isn't it? It's not so much about the facts; it's about what the media wants you to know.
And finally, in the Uslan bird of ridiculosity, after the fracas a week or two ago with the victim poker between homosexual versus Aboriginal AFL players, the St Kilda coach offered to fall on his sword during the week because he made a terrible gaffe because he told a small but prickly subset of his players that he expected them to be team players when playing on his team. Anyway, he recanted, he's apologised and offered his resignation because apparently a certain racial subgroup is exempt from the team player when playing on a team rule. There you go.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Oh dear. Prickly. All right. So what do we got? Yes, this one. Okay. So the Bondi Royal Commission came out. What's that?
No, I just had to find it. I was like, reset.
So the Bondi Royal Commission's come out after about 5 months, and as expected, have blamed guns and gun owners for the illegal use of, I think it was 4 guns by criminals. The problem is guns, licensed gun owners. And if Pauline Hanson's comments are agreed with by so many of the population, I think they are, it sort of explains, I think, why One Nation is skyrocketing in the polls. So here's what Pauline Hanson said about the initial results of the Bondi Royal Commission. She said, the report mentions firearms more than 150 times while barely mentioning Islam at all. Radical Islam is the elephant in the Royal Commission's room. The vast majority of terrorism attacks around the world have been committed in the cause of radical Islam, and that was certainly the case at Bondi. She also said this inquiry is supposed to be about social cohesion, but we have a system which actively works against it by allowing immigration by people who have absolutely no interest in assimilating with a cohesive Australian society. This includes extremist Islamist preachers who have been enabled to radicalise people in Australia, such as the Bondi shooters. So I agree. I think well said, although poor old Pauline, I think, is sailing very close to the racial vilification wind, and she might find herself jailed again, and she might find her party deregistered for hate speech because she's singling out a certain group for vilification. Now, that might also explain why they've gone from 0 to 25% in the polls at most recent elections too.
Yeah.
I've just bolded a couple of words there just to point out a couple of things. She says radical Islam is the elephant in the room. As discussed before, it's not radical Islam that we need to worry about, it's devout Islam. There's nothing radical about a literal interpretation of the Quran. That is, the correct word is devout, not radical.
Yep. And sure, we might say that, out of 1.2 billion or 3 or 4 billion, 1.4 billion people that identify as Muslim, maybe 1 billion aren't devout, and maybe secular Muslims, but the rest, if they're that devout. But anyway, that's a couple 100 million.
Well, the problem is, how do you tell the difference in advance?
This is right. Exactly right.
That's the problem. All right. Now, a couple other words. She's got there a cohesive society. Well, our wise rulers don't want a cohesive society. They want a diverse society. They've told us that many times. And sociological literature is quite clear on this. If you increase diversity, then your society becomes less cohesive. Diversity divides. Who'd have thunk it, Mark?
Who would have thought it? Yep, the massive attack on the Western world.
And secondly, Pauline said extremist Islamic preachers. No, again, they're not extremists, they're devout. They're reading exactly what the instruction manual says. There's nothing radical or extreme about people who quote the Quran. They're literally taking it. All right. So that was the Bondi RC. And speaking of social cohesion, which we just were, here's an update on last week's disgraceful booing on Anzac Day. Now, the RSL, and I wrote to the RSL New South Wales head. I wrote to the national head of the RSL. I wrote to several ministers, government ministers, and the Prime Minister, and I have zero replies from any of them, of course. So the RSL is a political body. They are not representing veterans. They are there representing left-wing political views. And so what they've done is the usual political tactic. When you're criticised, you announce an inquiry. So the RSL said that they're going to conduct a review about Welcome to Country at Anzac Day. 10 cents will get you $1 that we will never hear anything more about this. Until next year, of course, when they'll roll out Uncle Possum's skin again, won't they?
Yeah, exactly right. And as someone else shared, though, Bruce, I'm just going to share this quickly, and it should have all stopped, really, according to this lady here. So vote no, and you'll get no welcome to country again, Marsha Langdon said. Yeah. So why we still got it? But anyway.
It's a deal.
Done deal, done.
It's a deal.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I don't know if anybody, I mean, I was quite heavily involved during the No campaign and doing a lot of research and stuff. And you had people like Talia Reid who said, bring back the old links to the roots of the Communist Party. And we had the other guy that was pushing it, very much infiltrated by communist ideology. And we know that Marsha Langdon also had roots to early communism, as did Albo did and all that. So these people, we know where push is coming from. It's all to destabilize our nation. People can take me to task if they like, but that's just the research I did is what's led me to that. And I forget what his name is at the moment, but there's a guy that done some great research, wrote about the book about Comrade Prime Minister. He was Loudon someone, I forget now, but Cootie's interviewed him and other people interviewed him, wrote the book on Albo Comrade Prime Minister. So yeah, very interesting.
Yep. And I'm going to say something that might be controversial, so cover your ears.
I don't know. Really, Bruce?
Cover your ears. So we need one of those trigger warnings. The following story may have images of people who are dead. Well, the following story may include criticisms of certain cultural groups because I don't like their culture. Okay. So anyone who breeds horses or dogs knows that temperament is genetic. If you want a cuddly, bouncy dog, you get a Labrador. If you want a military working dog, you get a Belgian Shepherd. And that's because their temperaments are totally different. Same with horses. If you want a highly strung horses, you breed an Arab. If you want something that's quiet and non-spooky, you might get a Welsh pony. And that's, there'll be exceptions, but by and large, temperament is designed by breeding. And that figures back to the environment where those animals came from. So if your environment benefits a certain behavior pattern, then you'll do well in that environment and you'll reproduce more and you have more children. So in this case, the example is, okay, Aboriginal culture in Australia is socialist by nature because it arose in a socialist environment. Go back a few hundred years, you could not store food. There was no refrigeration. There were no metal cabinets. And the food that you got was irregular. So the men would go out and hunt, and sometimes they'd come back with a kangaroo and sometimes they wouldn't. But when they did come back with a kangaroo, it was shared amongst everybody because not everyone could go out and hunt. And also because the successful hunters couldn't keep it all for themselves because it would get stolen by the dingoes or would rot because there was no fridge, etc., etc. So Aboriginal culture is by its very nature, by its heritage, socialist/communist. That's what it is. There was no reward for being an entrepreneur in Australia 400 years ago. There wasn't. So I think it's inevitable that Aboriginal culture will have different flavours than, for example, Western culture will. So they're not the same.
No.
And they're not the same because they didn't arise in the same environment. Same as the physical forms are different because they arose in different environments. The operating systems are different too because they arose in different environments. And I will immediately get labelled as a racist for saying that, but, it's true. If I had to choose one person in the world to run the 100 metres to save my life, I'm not going to choose a Greek guy or an Ashkenazi Jew or a Chinese person. I'm going to choose Peter Boll and his genetics from Africa because I know he does that well.
He's going to run well.
Now,
cool.
same. If I'm going to choose a swimmer to swim to save my life, I'm not choosing Peter Boll because historically, African genes are not the best swimmers. It's self-evident, mate. And yet to suggest it is in one direction is, you can't say that, You can't say people are different. Yeah, they're different. You line them up, I'll tell you which ones are which.
Yeah, 100%. Different capabilities, everything else.
I'll pick it just by looking.
Yep.
Anyway, we've amazingly drifted off the point a little bit. So.
That's right. I just wanted to cover, I think Captain Cutlery was saying, I believe because there was over 250 tribes, there was some tribes in Australia that did have welcome to country, and it was really just a welcome for other tribes if they were travelling through one tribe's country to the other. And it was kind of like a ceremony that they'd have to say that we're welcoming you in there. But it's just been politicised. Even a lot of Aboriginals say it's heavily politicized. It's not what it was designed to do. And I thought about this myself, Bruce. Is like, so let's say like I live in Ghana country, but if you go to events or things like that and you get welcomed to that place, I've lived here for 20 years, and once I've been welcomed, doesn't that mean I'm welcomed? Why do I have to be welcomed back every single time? Like, why would you want to be welcomed back every single time to every event you go to? You're welcomed once and that's it. You're part of the community, aren't you? So, but anyway, I don't need to be welcomed to my country where I was born.
Yeah, I think it's actually worse than that, because as was explained by Uncle Mark Brown, for example, at the Anzac Day Welcome to Country, if you believe that this is a long-held traditional practice, and there are differing views on that, including the fact that Ernie Dingo made it up for a lark in the 70s. But if you accept that it really is a long-term cultural practice, they define the purpose of it is to allow outsiders to come onto your land.
Mm-hmm.
And as discussed a week or two ago, the very concept that Uncle Possum Skin can stand at an Anzac Day ceremony and imply that I am not a full member of the country that I served in uniform in 7 different places. That is deeply offensive to me.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And how offensive would it be to the people for the family members that have lost loved ones and they're in trenches or graves overseas that never come home for trying to defend this country.
Correct. Now, the RSL...
And this is coming from someone with German heritage, right? Both my parents are German, right? Like I love Australia. I was born here. I'd die for Australia. But I had grandparents that were the enemy to the Anzacs, right? But I just think it's astounding how we're treating our diggers.
Particularly when we go back a few slides and they were talking about a cohesive country.
Social cohesion.
Well, this is intrinsically divisive. It's an us and them ceremony.
100%. Yep.
Message to the RSL, who are so politicised these days that they don't even know why people were booing on Anzac Day, and in fact they have to have a review to look into it. The RSL's own website explains what the problem was. So misrepresenting service, so holding yourself out to be a veteran or a serviceman or entitled to medals that you were not awarded. And as discussed a week ago, 3 of the 4 medals worn at the Sydney ceremony by Uncle Ray were First World War medals. They were not his. Anyway, misrepresenting service is not only a federal offence, we covered that, but is also considered immoral and a profound insult. Isn't this what I said? I am deeply insulted by the idea that I'm not welcome in my own country, especially if I'm being told that by somebody who's stealing valour by wearing medals that aren't his. So before the RSL goes too far with their review, they might actually want to read their own website. And the head of the New South Wales RSL, a retired brigadier who should know better, is there standing next to Uncle Ray. And as we discussed a week or two ago, 3 of the 4 medals he's wearing are not his and cannot be because they're First World War medals. That's called stolen valor, and that is deeply, deeply offensive, as well as being a federal crime. So given the RSL doesn't know that, and a brigadier who heads them doesn't know that, I don't have a lot of faith for what their review might turn up. Do you?
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So three of those should have been on the other side. He could have left the one of them on that side, because I guess that was his, but the other three should have been on the other side. Yep.
But if he did that, then anybody looking at him when he stepped up there, if they're not a medals lawyer, and any serviceman knows all the rules for medals. In fact, they know what all the medals are. A big purpose of ribbon bars and medals is to tell any other serviceman what your experience level is. So I can watch someone go past and go, okay, served in East Timor, served in Iraq, etc., just as they walk past. And that's important. I call it a wearable CV. You know, most medals are what's called service medals rather than bravery medals. If you get a bravery medal, so much the better. But any serviceman can walk past another one and know exactly what their background is. And that's hugely important. So Uncle Ray, if he suddenly was only wearing one medal on the left chest there, it's going to look a bit bare, isn't it? Especially given, as we know, it's a pretty low quality medal. The ADM you get for turning up for 4 years. You don't have to leave the country. Uncle Ray got it for being a reservist in Queensland during the Vietnam War for 2 years. Never went overseas. So his chest would have looked a bit bare. His credibility would have dropped off a fair bit if he hadn't tried to deceive us by padding out his CV by wearing 3 other medals alongside it. And to anyone who says it was an accident, no, it's not. No serviceman would break that rule. I absolutely guarantee it.
Yep.
All right.
Very cool.
Enough of that. So brief Gulf War update, and it's brief this week because not much has happened. So day 63 of the 4-day war. We did, however, pass an important milestone over the weekend, which was the 60-day mark. And the reason that matters is because under the US Constitution, the president can take the country to war for up to 60 days without running it by the parliament, by Congress. He can just say, we're going to war. But if he wants to stay at war after 60 days, he has to get approval from the parliament, the Congress. So that time passed over the weekend. Now, Trump, instead of convening Congress and having a vote on whether the war should go on, he instead just wrote them a note which said he doesn't regard it as 60 days because there's been a ceasefire since, I think, day 39. So he said, because of the ceasefire, we haven't been at war for 60 days. This was completely deceitful and dishonest because, as we discussed a week or two ago, a blockade is an act of war. The US is still blockading the Strait and still boarding and seizing Iranian ships on the high seas. So the US is still at war with Iran. A ceasefire doesn't change that. A war only ends when you get a surrender. It doesn't just end with a ceasefire. You know, the Vietnam War, you know, North versus South Vietnam, the Korean War ended with a ceasefire, also known as an armistice, in 1953. That war's still going on. It hasn't finished. They've just stopped shooting for a while.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, and happy birthday and happy anniversary there. We'll let you off there, Susie. All right, enjoy.
No worries. Do watch us on recording.
That's it. Always come back.
All right. So Trump's added to all the other lies and distortions that he made by telling Congress that their country's not at war. Now, the blockade itself, which the US has called ironclad, and remember when they first started it, there were a few video clips of helicopters landing on ships, Iranian ships, and seizing them.
Mm.
But analysis I've read says that that's a lot more theatre than real anyway, with this analyst noting that the blockade is largely ineffective because the missile threat from Iran has kept the US ships hundreds of kilometres out out to sea, whereas the Iranian ships are simply sailing along within a stone's throw of the coast of Iran and then Pakistan. So it's very difficult for the US to interdict any of these ships because they have to identify them. Then they've got to fly a helicopter 200 or more kilometres out to it, loaded, then hover, then seize it, then fly back. So there are very severe range limitations. And this analyst said that as a result of that, 90% of ships are not being interdicted by the US blockade. So it's not ironclad. It's in fact theatre and almost completely ineffective. And this map just shows why. The Iranian ships are sneaking along the coast under the cover of the Iranian missile umbrella, which the US dare not put ships into. So the US Navy has been pushed way down hundreds of kilometres away, making their blockade much more difficult.
Yeah. Interesting. Wonder where they're all heading off to, which countries are accepting it.
Well, China's a biggie. And in fact, China, again, we've mentioned several times in recent weeks that the US is playing with fire if they are intercepting ships on the high seas which are bound for China. And in fact, during the week, China issued orders to its own refineries and factories that they were to ignore any US claims that they shouldn't accept oil from Iran. So there's increasing friction between China and the US, and the US is struggling with this war with Iran. They do not want to add China to their list of active combatants.
Yep.
All right. So end of week 9, what's the scorecard? The so-called ceasefire is still largely holding. The Israelis are still breaking it a bit, but they always do. And of course, the US are breaking it by having a blockade. So if you ignore that, the ceasefire is holding because a blockade breaks the ceasefire. It's an act of war. Despite that, the US blockade's probably fairly ineffective anyway, despite the pictures we're shown. But on top of it all, the strait remains effectively closed. There are very few unsanctioned ships getting out, which means Iran is still winning. They still control the strait. But really very little's happened for the last 2 or 3 weeks, which means the war appears to be on hold, but the strait is still closed. So we are still adding to all of the economic consequences. And even though things have gone quiet, there's not much in the news about it, and the price of fuel's come down, the problem is still there. And the more time goes on, the worse the economic fallout gets. Bit more on that bit later.
Very interesting.
All right. Return of a popular segment, Not Easy Being Green. So bad news that you have.
Not sure about Aussie Truth Seeker saying don't book a holiday on the Gold Coast at the moment. Heaps of crime, heaps of construction, heaps of business closed down. I wouldn't recommend it at the moment. It's like Melbourne. I'm not joking. Oh, there you go. Well, that's sad to hear.
I wouldn't live in any city.
Homelessness on the Gold Coast too. Wow. Yeah.
Rich, I love the suggestion. I love the suggestion.
They're getting anywhere. Yep, true that.
I'm not sure it'll help with this next story because Incat, the Tasmanian aluminium catamaran maker, has apparently finished this electric ferry, and it's the world's largest ever electric ferry. And it was destined for a run between, I think it's Montevideo and the River Plate, so Uruguay and Argentina. The problem is it can't get there because it's got a 90-minute range, and obviously you can't sail there. So they were going to put it on a submersible heavy lift ship and take it there, but that's stuck in the Gulf. So there's another blow to the green dream, the electric ferry stuck in Hobart for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Oh dear. Not easy being green.
It's not easy being green. Nothing green ever works, does it? Good old health. And the Advertiser, your local newspaper, has finally published a story mentioning the fact that there might be vaccine injuries as a result of the COVID vax. And I don't remember them doing this in the past, but they finally did push out this story, critical. So what do they say in the story? They said that this poor woman suffered a devastating allergic reaction to the jab. Since then, she's had 11 surgeries to her heart and been admitted to hospital 29 times. Now, I might not be a doctor anymore, but I still remember a little bit about allergic reactions, and allergic reactions are one-offs. You get them, they go away. So if it's seafood or antibiotics that you're allergic to, you'll get a rash and maybe a bit of wheeze, and it might last a few hours to a few days. If I inject you with something you're allergic to, you'll get a very nasty reaction on the end of the needle, and I'll treat you with adrenaline and steroids, and 20 minutes to an hour later, it's over. It's done. So this woman did not have an allergic reaction to the vaccine, and that's sort of painting it, well, you can get allergic reaction to antibiotics. Who knows? It's just one of those things. Yeah. No, she clearly had myocarditis.
Downplaying it.
She had multiple hospital admissions and heart procedures. This was myocarditis. This was not. And a couple more points from the story.
My gosh. Of course, they got to put that there.
They still managed to throw in the safe bit. So what they said was COVID vaccinations were safe for most Australians, but almost 5,000 have since claimed under the COVID vaccination compensation scheme. Now, even that's weakening it, because they're not saying, but almost 5,000 have been injured. They've claimed a problem, right? A bit like putting in a compo claim, for your bad back. It's,
it's all in the wording, isn't it? It's all in the wording.
But they had to throw that in. They couldn't throw the effective bit in, but they had to throw the safe bit in.
Interesting they didn't put effective though, Luke. There, Bruce. It's where's the effective? Oh, they're really starting to peter off the effective now.
Well, we know what the effects were. It was 29 hospital admissions.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, it also said that before her vaccinations, Kathleen, the woman in the story, sought an exemption through her GP, but she says she was told she didn't qualify.
Wow.
We've discussed this before. The only thing you need to do to refuse a medical treatment is say no, thank you. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't apply for exemptions. You don't get granted them or refused them. You own your body. You're in charge of what happens to it, and saying no, thank you is all you have to do to opt out of any medical treatment.
Yep.
Anyway, given that I still have a free subscription to the Adelaide Advertiser,
really?
Yeah, I get that as a CFS member, which I haven't been for a few years, although I would note, as you know, that I spent 4 days recently firefighting with the CFS in South Australia, just down the road from you, as it turned out, at the Deep Creek fire.
Didn't come in for a coffee, did you?
So I was a tad busy, my man.
I understand.
So I threw in this comment, as a fully paid up member of the subby service. So I said, I see you still had to throw in the safe for most Australians bit. No, they weren't safe. A large number of people suffered injuries from them. It wasn't safe for those who didn't, in the same way that Russian roulette isn't safe for anyone, regardless of whether the gun went bang when they pulled the trigger. Do you think that would have slipped past the censors?
Absolutely not.
No, not allowed to say they weren't safe. Yep, you're right. That didn't get to air. So I thought, okay, let's try this one. allergic reactions don't need 11 surgeries to the heart and 29 hospital admissions and a pacemaker. She got myocarditis, a recognised complication of the COVID injections. Do you reckon that got through?
Yeah, we already know the answer to that. But good on Michael for being persistent.
Yeah, well, Michael, for about 2 days, that was the only comment there.
Well, they allowed it. That's interesting.
So again, I wonder, how did he sneak that through? Maybe the mods just didn't know who funds the TGA or even what the TGA is, or more likely I'm flagged.
Or what Michael was insinuating by that question either. Because if they understood what Michael was insinuating by that question, then those, of course, the pharmaceutical companies do, don't they? But anyway.
So, finally, I'll have another go. So this was a response to someone else's comment. So someone else said, when the vaccine came out, the medical fraternity voiced loudly about its effectiveness. The naysayers pointed out its side effects, but were shouted down by our medical experts. Today, there are many globally who have suffered permanent damage from the vaccines, but unsurprisingly, nothing from the experts and silence from the doctors.
Wow, that was allowed on there.
Yeah, that was allowed, but my response wasn't allowed, because here's what my response was. Not all doctors were supporters. I lost my job as a senior South Australian health specialist for telling patients the injections were dangerous. And I just tried posting here twice with other comments, but the advertiser censored them. There were doctors trying to warn you, but they got silenced. They are still being silenced. Guess what?
Gone.
I got silenced.
Yep.
And
good on you, advertiser.
Rewind 5 years, I made a very similar comment. Right back in the thick of it, of the COVID, somebody made a comment on one of these stories which said, well, who are all these doctors saying that the injections are dangerous? I've never heard of one. And my reply was, well, I am one. I've done extensive research. Here are the risks. I gave up my career rather than give these things because they're dangerous. Censored. So you've got an advertiser reader saying, connect me with a doctor who agrees with this. And I went, I am one. And they went, no, you can't say that.
Yep.
So we were censored the whole way through, and we're still being censored. And the best they can do is what you've just seen, which is called a limited hangout. They just let a little bit of the story out in mild form, almost looks like you've heard of it and it's nothing and you debunk it. Because this woman didn't have a COVID injury. She had a allergic reaction, apparently.
Yes, well, we know the advertiser is owned by News Corp. It's obviously a Murdoch publication, Bruce, and
who's owned by.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Now, in slight contrast, in a bit of a watching the show moment, the health writers at The Australian have finally woken up about coronary artery calcium scans. And that's what this story was about. So this scan beats a cholesterol test alone for judging heart risk. Now, again, they had to water it down by saying alone. So you've got to have your cholesterol test and your calcium scan. Whereas I'd tell you, have a calcium scan. If you haven't got any calcium in your heart, then nobody cares what your cholesterol is. So they've gone halfway there. And for people who don't know, the current model is for GPs to force you, badger you into having a cholesterol test. And if it's above a certain level, which they keep bringing down over time, they tell you that's bad and you have to have statins because you're going to have a heart attack and die. Despite the fact, as we looked at a couple of weeks ago, the entire science behind that was blatant fraud. But that's the current model. Get your cholesterol level. If it's above a certain number, then the doctor will badger you into taking a statin. So your cholesterol level doesn't actually tell you whether you've got any coronary disease at all. It's a risk factor, which it's not, but they claim it is. Why not actually measure what your pipes look like? And the way you do that is with a calcium scan. And there's various different grades of that, but basically you get calcium deposited in your arteries as they heal after you've had a small injury to them. And you can use a high-speed CAT scanner, which is gated to your heart, the cycle of your heart, and that can actually show you how much calcium you've got in your coronaries. And if there's none or bugger all, then you've got none or bugger all clogging of your arteries, in which case it doesn't matter what your cholesterol is. Most doctors don't know this, and they'll just use the old cholesterol thing because that allows them to force you onto a tablet, which their job is to sell, without ever proving that you need it. So we've discussed in the past, I think statins are poisons and I wouldn't take them for anything. But if your doctor really, really badgers you on statins, say, you order me a calcium scan and you demonstrate that I've got a problem and maybe I'll consider it then. That's what I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Money and finance.
It's just a reminder, though, Bruce, for people, and I'd like to share this because I think it was a really good discussion between yourself and Elizabeth and myself. So if people haven't seen it, the explosive conversation about informed consent on YouTube. So yep, and that's on Rumble and YouTube, but that's it there. We had it there. It's on, if you have a look on the YouTubes, you'll find it there as well. And it's on my Rumble, obviously. So it's really, I found it was a really, really good conversation. And you and Elizabeth, obviously, some, strong conversations through that, but I think she, in the end, understood where you were coming from. So, with the exemptions and stuff in particular. But I wanted to remind people of this, and this is, I think this can't be played enough, Bruce, to be honest. And I want to play it again because I think people it just needs to continue to go viral. This is how they treated us.
Oh, they're crazy not to get vaccinated. Life will be miserable without being vaccinated. You won't be able to get any, you won't be able to hide. You won't be able to get a doctor to sign off that you got an exclusion because there's quite set rules on that, and doctors will be audited to see every one of their exclusions will be looked at very carefully. They'll get fined. They can get struck off. The patients who tell lies can be charged with fraud. There's a whole pile of issues, whole pile of problems if you try and get around the system. It's going to be very hard to maintain your employment if you're not vaccinated. You won't be able to go anywhere for any entertainment. So by all means, get vaccinated. You've got another week where you can get double vaccinated before the 15th to 17th of December when it's definitely coming in. And there'll be proof that you've been vaccinated, firm proof. You'll be asked to show going into most venues. So get vaccinated. Otherwise, you're going to have a very, very lonely life and you're not going to be able to maintain your employment.
Yeah, I mean, I think people who've been feeling relaxed about this might be enough that the momentum to get them vaxxed. Do you think that then means you could see that opening date, the 17th of December, brought forward?
Oh, I don't think people can be relaxed about it anymore. Their livelihood is on the line.
There you go. That is massive coercion in Australia. So they keep calling, free informed consent. They're going to make your life hard. Straight from I think he was Queensland Medical Service, Christopher Perry. I'd like to see him. Honestly, I'd love to see him in front of some Nuremberg 2 trial for those kind of comments that he made to the Australian public through that period.
Compare and contrast. I got a show cause letter from APRA. He probably got an AM, an AO for that.
Oh, of course he did, 100%. He's probably happily living on his couple of $100,000 a year, whatever he was getting paid in those roles, while bloody pushing that. And as we know, our great friend Elizabeth Hart has written to Channel 9 questioning the standard of broadcasting in regards to that, and she continues to be like a terrier writing to wherever she can. So good on her for continuing to try.
And just to flesh that out a bit more, the Australian Vaccination Handbook, which is the how-to for giving vaccines, including COVID shots, it says in black and white at the start that you must gain informed consent from the recipient. and this must be freely given without coercion of any kind.
Yep.
No jab, no job, your life's going to be miserable. It was out and out coercion. Now, another point I want to make is that you are giving what's called informed consent. So there's two parts to that. There's informed and there's consent. So the doctor's job is to give you information. Your job is to give consent or refuse it. Okay, so your doctor does not give consent and therefore they can't deny it. The patient owns their body. They're in charge of what happens to it. They say yes or no. The doctor's job is just to tell them information. So it's risks, benefits, alternatives. We didn't get any of those things. They told us there was no risk. They told us it was all benefit, and they criminalised the alternatives like vitamin D and vitamin I, ivermectin.
Yep.
So
nobody
in Australia who accepted a COVID vaccine gave informed consent because the information wasn't given. And in very, very many cases, the consent was given under duress. So nobody gave informed consent, which means everybody who accepted a COVID vaccine was assaulted, and everyone that delivered one committed assault.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. No doubts about it. And as our health minister at the time, Mr. Greg Hunt, said, we were all part of the biggest global clinical global trial the world's ever seen. So,
in history.
you know,
Yep.
In history. And he's on record. I've got plenty of video of that as well. So, but anyway, back to the show. Money and finance, Bruce.
Money and finance, nothing happening this week. So forget the Strait of Hormuz in its, I don't know, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th week of closure. None of that matters. Nothing changed. Gold down a tiny bit, everything else pretty much flat. So the world thinks there's no financial problems out there anywhere. That's good to know.
Yeah, well, good on the world.
As Christopher Martinson said, the stock market is lying to you, amongst other things.
Same as our government.
Well, surprise, surprise.
Lo and behold.
The comparison fuel prices here in Western Vic at my local servo. So very little change. So unleaded last week, 183, this week, 181. Diesel's 259 down to 248, and premium's done nothing. So basically, slightly softer to no change in the fuel prices. And so I'm going to repeat what I said last week, which is enjoy it while it lasts, because world events do not justify this. There is a lot of what they call upside risk to fuel prices and everything that's related to it. And just here's a bit of backgrounding for that. So currently the world is down 20-25% of its oil supply and has been for 8 weeks. So all of the tankers that left the Strait of Hormuz before its closure have now reached their destinations. There's only air in the pipeline behind them. But the actual shortages are just starting now. Up until now, everything else has been afloat and still coming. So currently we're down, from now on, 20% less oil is going to be arriving, maybe 25%. And certain other critical resource inputs, it's even worse. Fertilizers, 35+%, all the input materials for plastic production, etc., etc., etc. So this is just starting now. Okay, just starting now. Now, to balance a 20 or 25% reduction in world oil supplies, we need to have a 20 to 25% reduction in world oil use. That's the purpose of prices going up. When the prices go up, you buy less until the price and the demand match. But they match at a level where there's not as much available, so people don't buy as much. That's called demand destruction. So to make up for the fact that we've got 25% less oil available, we've got to have 25% less demand for oil going forward. And there's two main ways that can happen. One of them is the price going up, as we've just spoken about. But the problem with using price as a rationing tool for fuel, is that fuel is what they call a very inelastic commodity. So fuel is so important that people will just keep buying it even if the price goes up. And you might have noticed this during the initial surge when petrol went to nearly $3 and diesel to $3.30. For a week or two, people going, oh, I'm not driving there. And like within another week or two after, it's back to normal. And today it's back to normal. And it's back to normal with a diesel price, which is like 20% higher than it was. So even significant rises in fuel prices don't really produce much demand destruction. And you need massive price rises to cause significant demand destruction. Now, I don't know what that price needs to be, but it's certainly more than $3 for diesel. It might be $5. It might be $10. We don't know. We find out by experimenting. So, yeah, one way we balance this loss of oil supply is that we have major price rises. And we had them, and then they've dropped off again. Now, the other way we can cut 20-25% off oil demand is to cut 20 to 25% off GDP. Because as Christopher Martinson showed, despite decades of green dreaming and building wind factories and solar turbine, solar, et cetera, you know what I'm trying to say. It's made very little dent on world GDP. Across the world, there's a straight line relationship between oil consumption and GDP. And that's what's shown there on that graph. So what that means is to balance a 20-25% fall in oil supply, we have to have a 20-25% fall in global GDP. And to put those things in perspective, our Reserve Bank defines a recession as 2 quarters of negative growth. And if the negative growth is 2%, they call that a typical recession. And if it's 5%, they call that a severe recession. Now, on the other hand, if it's more than 10%, they call it a depression. And the worst depression on record was the Great Depression in 1929-30. And that was a 30% pullback in world GDP. And 100 years later, that's still regarded as the benchmark. So we're actually talking about an economic contraction of the same order of magnitude. The depression was 30-odd%. We're looking at 20, 25, maybe more, because it's not just oil, it's fertilizer and everything else. So we have what's called baked in now, even if the Strait of Hormuz opens tomorrow, we've got 6 to 12 months of getting the whole mess untangled. You know, the ships are in the wrong place, there's air in the pipeline, the ships that have been stuck in the Gulf have got to spend 2 months sailing to wherever they're sailing before they can unload and come back and fill up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of untangling to do. And on top of that, there's probably significant infrastructure damage as well. We don't know how much because they're censoring it. You know, we are not seeing pictures of what Israel looks like or what Saudi Arabia looks like. By and large, you cannot get satellite stuff in the open domain because they're hiding it. And they're not hiding it because it's good news. So summarize all that. I stick to what I've been saying for weeks now, which is that we have a much bigger economic problem coming despite all the relative calm that you see around you. This is baked in. This is going to happen. Enjoy. So fill a jerry with petrol while the prices are still down, I suspect.
Yeah. Rationing in South Australia with our Premier.
Well, sounds like he's going to send the boys round and steal it.
It wouldn't surprise me. Oh, Mally. It's the communist way.
Now, next finance story. So I think in the past I've made the comment that the Greens are not really tree huggers. They're actually communists. So they're green on the outside and red in the middle, also known as watermelons. And they've demonstrated that again this week with this call for managing the current cost of living pressures. So they want to have a nationwide rent freeze during the fuel crisis. So a rent freeze means that your landlord can't put their rental price up, even though their other costs are going up, you know, costing them more for fuel, more for electricity, etc., etc. So the Greens want to insulate the renters just by saying, well, price controls. You're not allowed to put your rent up. And that is what you call a price control. So the Greens think that they can stop costs rising by controlling prices. And just to make that clearer, price and cost are not the same thing. Price is what you pay to buy something, and cost is what they pay to make it.
Mm-hmm.
If the price is not higher than the cost, then they stop making it. You know, if you fix the price of bread at $1, but the cost of making it is $2, you don't get cheap bread, you get no bread. And that's a universal economic law. Friend of the channel, Milton Freeman's mentioned that. Price controls always create shortages because they don't address costs, which is what actually matters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this will happen in the property market. If the Greens get their way and landlords now can't raise their prices to match their rising costs, then over time, people will stop investing in that area. And of course, that's going to happen doubly because Jim Chalmers wants to increase the capital gains tax on properties, rental properties. So we're looking at a double.
Thought I saw something just recently in the news about a backflip on that. Only just today, just not sure. I'd have to look it up a bit more, but yeah.
Look, we don't actually know what the final result is going to be.
It's next week, isn't it? Isn't it on the 12th or something?
I think it is
next week?
I think so. But there's been sufficient pushback that they have been backpedaling somewhat. Now, to what, we don't know. But they have, for example, said that they will exempt existing rental properties, and this will only apply to new rental properties.
Mm-hmm.
Pro tip, that's going to make it even worse for more housing supply. We'll see. We won't know for a week what they're going to do, but as discussed previously, the government are spending and taxing addicts, and tax reforms are always tax increases.
Yep.
Now, the Greens, of course, framed this as helping. So they said a rent freeze and a ban on evictions. They did this during COVID, by the way. Will give people the security they need in a cost of living and fuel crisis. Well, that's the tenants. It's not going to give the landlord any security if he suddenly can't make enough rent to pay for his cost of money, you know, with interest rates going up, for example. So we're going to get a double whammy to the existing housing crisis. There is going to be less investment in new rental properties going forward, and existing landlords who find their properties are worth less because the taxes going up, and that they're suddenly not allowed to raise their rents to meet their costs, they're going to exit the market. So we already see these scenes regularly where 40 people turn up to inspect a rental flat. Government making rentals less profitable for landlords, brackets investors, means that there will be less of them in the future, and these queues will get longer. Now, the Greens, of course, they pull the old jealousy card, and what they've said is that Labor is giving tax breaks to price gouging corporations and wealthy property investors. Are you a wealthy property investor, Mark?
No, I'm just trying to set us up for the future so that I don't have to rely on the government. The government doesn't have to pay us. So, you know, by investing my self-managed super into a property, it's a way that I can kind of hopefully secure a bit of my retirement. Bruce, just like, you know, family, mum and dad investors, when the majority of investors are made up.
So you said you don't want to rely on the government.
No, well, I hope not to.
There's a problem with your strategy, Mark.
Yeah, well, government wants to rely on me.
Bingo.
And you. Bingo.
Bingo, Mark. Bingo. Anyway, budget's coming out next week. Guarantee it's just going to be tax us more, tax us more, tax us more.
Yep, absolutely right.
Now, the state government here in Victoria is probably the most socialist left wing in the country. So it's no surprise to see them pulling this old trick. They're taxing you more and then they're giving a bit of it back and saying that they are helping. So a month or two ago, the Victorian government said that they were going to make public transport free to help deal with rising price of fuel. And now they've come out and said they're going to give you a 20% discount on your registration costs, just to help. So the details of that are registration currently costs $930 for a car, and they're going to give you $186 back. And part of the justification for this is Premier Allen said it would provide some relief at a time when working people and their families are looking for support from their government. Now, the problem with that is this support is not coming from government. This support is coming out of your pocket. It's getting run through the bureaucracy of government and a bit of it's coming back to you. That's how government works. They take a big slab from you. They keep a fair bit of it themselves. They give some of it back and say that they're helping.
Yeah.
Now, currently, we are the highest taxed state in Australia, and that's still not enough. So what this basically is doing is going to take away $750 million in revenue to the Victorian state government. Now, they don't have $750 million sitting in an account somewhere. They, like all other governments, run in deficit all the time. Their credit card is always overdrawn. So that 120 odd bucks that I might get back for my car is in return for the 400 odd million that is added to my my tab for free public transport, and the 750 million that's added for this discount on registration. And by the way, I have never used public transport in Victoria ever. I don't think I've used it anywhere in more than 20 years. So I'm paying for other people to use public transport. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
And despite all of that, the Victorian government is just like the Australian Labor government. They are in massive deficit despite ripping serious money. Now, most people regard their income tax as their main form of taxation. You know, it's what they rip out of your pay packet that you notice. But here in Victoria, for example, the average resident is taxed $6,600 a year by the various levels of government, state and downwards. So this isn't what they take out of your pay packet. This is council rates, registration fees, etc., etc., etc. $6,500 is taken. And then add to that what Albo helps himself to. And despite that, Victoria's got a record debt. So $6,500 is not enough for the Victorian government. They have to have more of my money every year. And it's the same at the federal level. So just a question, and I've asked you this before. What is the most expensive thing you buy in your life?
Oh, it's got to be government. I mean, there's something I actually know for a change, Bruce. There we go. I think you've rammed it home often enough. Yep.
And it's still not enough. They've still got a record here in Victoria, and I guarantee you they might pull some accounting trick in the federal budget next week and announce a surplus, same as you might remember Wayne Swan. You know, the 3 years of surpluses I'm announcing tonight, he didn't deliver any of them. And as you remember, back in the Peter Costello days, 20 years ago, the Australian federal national debt was zero. It's now the highest it's ever been. They've blown it out to over $1 trillion in 20 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. You're saying like $42 billion a year, just some bloody, if you look at that average of 6,600, I mean, there's around 7 million people in Victoria. That's bloody $42 billion a year just on that.
And guess what? That's one snowy battery.
Yes.
Gone. And
Yep.
that will probably never be delivered, by the way.
No, what a massive, massive cock up that is. Anyway, we're going to talk about that.
Just by way of example, they extract large sums of money off all citizens and they waste it again and again and again.
It's only other people's money, Bruce. What does it matter?
Yeah, it's only OPM, isn't it?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
What have we got in the governing
compound that further though, Bruce? Like, I mean, we've got the housing, the housing crisis and everything else like that. A couple of stories that have come across that's going to sort of tie into this, and you've probably seen a little bit of this. I'm just going to show you this little spec. This was from the Spectator. Just going to bring that up. And this was Immigration Minister Tony Burke's interview with Pawan Luthra on the Pawan Luthra podcast has been doing the rounds on social media over the weekend. And let's be generous and say it didn't do him any favours. Tony Burke said half our doctors now are born overseas. Half of our registered nurses are born overseas. About a quarter of tradespeople we need to build homes are born overseas. So effectively, we can't run our health system or build the houses that we need without immigration now. You think that's a good thing. So that was, that was an article, Tony Burke's troubling interview on migration future. And I found this little clip, just going to quickly play for you.
Concrete actions have been taken to reduce the number of people stuck in permanently temporary status.
Yeah. So there's a few changes that some things we've already done and more things that we're continuing to look at. If I start with the values that I'm trying to bring to this debate, first of all, there are countries that have effectively part of their economy as guest workers who will never become citizens. I don't believe that should be the model for Australia. I believe that people who are still here, people who are going to continue to be here and are working here, should have an opportunity to become fully part of Australia's democracy.
Concrete actions have been status.
There you go. And that was the comment from Drew Pravlo. Was Australian Immigration Minister Tony Burke declared his intention to follow in the footsteps of Spain and grant citizenship to all temporary visa holders, 2.9 million apparently. So I haven't looked into those figures myself, but apparently that's what it is. So, yep, there you go. Just going to compound woes even further.
Well, I just Googled Tony Burke and I put in Tony Burke electorate mix. And here's what it says. Tony Burke represents the division of Watson in the Australian House of Representatives. The city has held since 2004. The electorate is located in southwestern Sydney and is characterised by significant multicultural and immigration population. More than 70% of constituents have both parents born overseas. 25% are Islamic.
Wow. No wonder he's the immigration minister.
Yeah, like no conflict of interest declared, I presume.
No, of course not. No. Good on you, Tony. Thank you.
Yeah, good on.
Thank you. And can you, Australians, kids and grandkids, you can thank Tony Burke for your future.
I think this is Tony Burke here in the graphic.
With the gov on it.
All right. Now, we've been saying for weeks that the government is flagging significant rises in capital gains tax, and that's aimed at property investors, and I've told you multiple times why that's a catastrophe. One of them being that this will cause capital flight to other investments. So if you put the tax up on property investments, then some of the money there will go somewhere else, share market, Bitcoin, whatever. And so I've said that if they really do bring this in, then they're going to have to bring it in across all asset classes to stop this, to stop capital flight. And here it is. So this story was a couple of days ago. And what does it say? Share market investors face a tax grab disguised as fairness as the government prepares to overhaul capital gains rules across every asset class. So, yeah, as predicted, they might have just been sort of flagging it for rentals, and they're telling you that it's for intergenerational equity. I mean, let's just dissect that phrase. Intergenerational, from one generation to the other. Equity. Equity means everybody gets the same amount. Doesn't mean everybody gets what they earned or what they were inherited. It means it's divvied up equally amongst everybody, including the people who didn't earn it and didn't get left it.
Sounds like a UBI, Bruce.
Well, it's a communist grab. They want to take everything you have and redistribute it around.
Universal basic income.
They market this as beneficial to young people who are having trouble getting into the property market. Now, it'll make it worse because it's going to make rentals even harder. And, you know, if the rental supply is really limited, then some people will buy the rent, et cetera, et cetera. So reduce the supply. Now, if they really wanted to help young people, they would stop spending and stop racking up national debt, because it's the young people that are going to pay that. If they really wanted to be fair to young people, they would stop spending instead of stealing money off me and giving it to someone else. And by the way, I have my own intergenerational equity plan. I want to give my shit to my kids. That's my intergenerational equity plan. I don't want it taken by the government and given to other people's kids. No, I earned that money. I paid tax when I bought it. When I die or beforehand, I want my children to get it. I don't want some rando who voted Labor to get it.
Yep, no, I agree. Less government, less, you know, we get them out of our life as much as possible, and, you know, just focus on the things that, you know, obviously we almost can't do without.
No, unfortunately, as we discussed last week, second law of thermodynamics, governments always grow until they kill the host, like all parasites.
Yep.
Can't avoid it.
Yep, it'll get worse before it gets better.
All right, zombie stories that will not die. Our old friend Snowy Hydro, blown out from 2 billion to 42 billion.
Wow.
And they announced the latest figure, 42 billion this week. So here's what the story said. Malcolm Turnbull promised us it would cost $2 billion and take 4 years. And here we are 9 years later with just 40 billion and 3 more years to go.
Wow.
Now, on the other side, the article said we could have built 4 nuclear plants, South Korean style, and got 5 gigawatts of actual generation with a production of 40 terawatt hours a year. That's 100 times as much energy available when you need it.
Yep.
So it's not just a matter of Malcolm Turnbull has paid up a vast amount of money against the wall on our behalf. It's what's called opportunity cost. Not only is that money wasted, but it can't be spent on something that actually works, like 4 nuclear reactors that will give us 100 times more power.
Yeah, exactly right. And no wonder forecasters are saying that the bloody Green New Deal, the bloody renewables, wind farms, solar is going to be end up, you know, that whole transitional thing is going to be into the order of $9 trillion odd dollars. I don't discount that at all. I actually think it's probably going to be more if you look at this as any sort of bloody guide.
Well, this is just one project.
It's sabotage, just sabotaging our country. These people just absolutely sabotaged our country. Yep. And they claim to be governance.
Look around you. You drive through these vast fields of wind fans and solar panels. And not only do they cost a huge amount to make, they've actually destroyed the electric grid that we already had to do it.
And the environment.
So we've paid a large amount of money to swap what we had, which worked, for something that doesn't work.
Yep. All because of Al Gore and co. There's a little con of the world with a little propaganda machine with Greta Thunberg.
Govern me harder, Daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Righto, next zombie story rolled out again. So a new study, Mark, has shown that extreme heat is killing us all, or at least the vulnerable, I can hear the ABC saying.
Oh, of course.
So let me read. A bombshell report has shockingly revealed more Aussies, most of whom are elderly or disabled, that would be the vulnerable, have been killed by extreme heat than all other natural disasters combined over an 18-year period. Now, first question, would rising electricity prices have anything to do with that?
Yeah, I wonder, you know.
Is there some
Maybe
sort of appliance that
correlation.
you could use and you put electricity in at one point and get cold air out somewhere else? Could somebody invent that?
Well, I think, but they gave $275 towards that, Bruce.
Wasn't that towards your car, Rich?
Yeah, that too.
All right. So that's pretty scary what they've said. Okay. Well, let's dissect it a bit. The source actually gives us a bit of a clue about how seriously we should take this. So, according to the New South Wales Net Zero Commission,
Of course.
extreme heat has been responsible for more than half of all listed natural hazard fatalities between 2000 and 2018. And just detouring a bit, you might have noticed in the last couple of years, the BOM is issuing all these extreme heat warnings. I bet it's something to do with this. It's to capture a certain period of time and put it in the extreme heat basket. Now, the story also said this: Sweltering Cities Executive Director, Emma Bacon, has campaigned to raise awareness about heat inequality. So that sounds like a couple of robust, unbiased scientific organisations, doesn't it? The Net Zero Commission and the Sweltering Cities Commission.
Very unbiased. Oh,
Now,
dear.
Note also how they make this claim. So they narrow down on a tiny subset of all deaths, natural hazard deaths. So that means storms, bushfires, floods, etc., as well as heat waves. But it's, bugger all people die in any of those things in Australia because we're a modern first world country. We manage our environment and we get the odd one. You get floods in New South Wales, you get a handful of people die. Sometimes you get a handful of people die in a bushfire, but it's not like 1,000, is it?
No.
So, and don't you love that new term there, heat inequality?
You just want to throw that in everywhere, like inequality, heat DEI. Who would have thought?
Gender, Aboriginal, homophobia, inequality, heat, yeah, whatever.
What if it's got its own flag?
Oh, there's an idea.
Heat flag.
Now,
full of hot air.
Here's the problem with this story. Hot weather is not the main killer of people, and we know this. This is true all around the world in countries hot and cold. Actual death data consistently shows you get more deaths in winter when it's colder and wetter. And that's so autumn and winter. And that's what this graph shows. You get that big blip upwards in autumn and winter, and you get it every year. And a significant part of that is what they call the old man's friend, which is influenza. So people who are just struggling to stay alive, they tend to get tipped over the edge by the increased frequency of respiratory infections that they're exposed to in winter. So this is a worldwide phenomenon that's well known. And, of course, you also get the odd oldie who freezes to death in their flat, although that'll be less common in Australia. So that's the reality. So what they've told us is that, you've got this heat inequality, basically more than half the deaths are due to this. In reality, no, it's not hot weather that kills people, it's cold weather that kills people.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
as our
given,
good friend, as I like to keep pointing out to our good friend old Teddy, really talking about the change in the temperature and hot air cooling and lowering little microscopic little things, and there's an opportunity there for people to get sick. All his theory there.
off the top of my head, I think the excess deaths is 10 times higher for cold weather events than hot weather events.
Mm.
And Trish has made a good point here as well, which is that you also get less food when it's cold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because stuff doesn't grow as well.
So why the heck do they want to dim the sun, Bruce? Why does Bill want to do that? He's such an anti-human person, isn't he? Him and his other cohort that want to try and dim the sun to make the planet cooler. Is there a reason behind that, Bruce?
Yeah, there is. And I explained this to a friend the other day who basically said, how come everybody's too dumb to see what's going on? And I said, well, they've all been brought up in a world where the paradigm, the worldview, is that the government is a benign parent who is there to make sure everything's all right. That's the prevailing worldview for most people. Now, to change from that to the actual reality, which is the government wants to first steal all your stuff, then they want you dead. That's a pretty big shift. But the second thing is reality. When you have a model, you test it against real data. So if your model is the government is benign and helpful and just wants to be good to me, test that against everything else. How much of your shit do they steal in tax? What about forcing you to get a dangerous product, the COVID thing? What about banning ivermectin that actually worked? What about locking people down so they died of depression and all those things? What about demonizing vitamin D and arresting them if they went out in the sun? Are any of those things consistent with a benign parental government that wants you to have a good life? Or are they more consistent with they want to take everything I have and then I'll be, they want me dead? Which model is closer fit to the data? Take it from there.
Yeah, exactly right. So anti-human agenda. I think that's actually the other way around, isn't it, Trish? I think you use up more energy trying to stay warm, yes, or trying to warm yourself up. That's from being cold. That's right. Yep, that's right.
No, that's true, because you can basically stay cool with almost no effort. You just need shade and water, and that'll give you evaporative fluid. That's what families used to do back in the 60s and the 70s. They'd open the house up and they'd hang wet sheets around the place, or the kids would get under the sprinkler.
Yeah, exactly right. You get a little orbital fan and you get a little spray bottle of water and you spray that every now and then. Yeah, or under your pergola. I know a lot of people what they had is like a little fernery under the pergola, and they had like little mist irrigation system, and the mist would blow and it would just keep that whole area nice and cool with a bit of a fernery, and that was beautiful.
Yep. Whereas trying to keep warm when it's cold is more insidious, especially if they make electricity too expensive. And forget about oil, and you can't have wood because that'll give asthma. And you can only have electricity, but it's really expensive. Sorry. Oh, and it's not working at the moment because we've buggered up the electricity system. And I remember, as I said before, I was in Adelaide for the 2 3-day outages that we had. One was the state black and one was an Adelaide Hills blackout. And it was in winter. And after about 18 hours of absolutely no electricity in my house, it was cold. Everything was cold. The house cooled down, the floors, the walls, the air, everything was sucking energy out of me. So, yeah, it's much harder to stay warm in a cold environment than cool in a hot environment. Much harder.
Yeah. Man, anybody, if you're a kind of skeptical person, Bruce, you'd think it's almost on purpose what they're trying to do, wouldn't you? Like, I mean, it just seems so weird.
Talk. That's crazy talk.
I know. So I've got to give myself an uppercut, give myself a slap.
So, question. Why, given the evidence we've just shown you, why is Sweltering City's Executive Director, Emma Bacon, misleading us in this story? Why is she telling us that heat is the problem here? Why is
probably
she
getting paid very good money for that, Bruce.
Gazump strike. I don't know what she's being paid, but it is her job. You know, what is she? The sweltering cities commissioner or something? What do you think her bloody job is? It's to proselytise about hot weather.
Of
She's
course.
a political activist, not a scientist. And by the way, so's the whole staff of the Bureau of Meteorology.
Yeah, exactly right.
They're not scientists either. Their job is to peddle the government line, which is it's getting hotter. And they do that with a whole lot of chicanery, which is anti-science. You know, we've discussed it in the past. So the standardised screen that you measure temperature in is called a Stevenson screen. Originally, they're supposed to be out in a grass field. And then as urban areas surrounded them and got built up, gets hotter, they still keep taking the temperature there. It's not in the same place anymore. It's in a hot urban area, not in a field. They reduced the size of the Stevenson screen and they changed the paint. And doing those two things meant it got hotter inside the Stevenson screen. This is the standardised measuring receptacle. They're these white things on legs, which were used for a century. They just arbitrarily changed it to a design that was going to give them hotter temperatures. They've got more rapid response temperature gauges. You know, in the old days, you had a mercury thermometer, and the way you worked out how hot it was in the day is you saw how high the column of mercury had risen, and somebody would walk out there and measure it. Now, I don't know about the agility of a column of mercury, but it's not instant. And we all know you've had times I can be standing out in a paddock and a waft of hot air goes over me. Probably one of those little whirlies goes past and it's hot. And you think, oh, that was warm. Now, if that goes across your mercury thermometer, it doesn't register. The modern equipment of these electronic thermocouples, which measure it like that. So you've had a sudden blip of 2 degrees upwards in temperature. That becomes the high temperature for the day. And if all else fails, they do what's called homogenization. They say there was a problem with the old temperature measurements. We have to correct them. And colour me shocked, the corrections always make the past cooler and the modern hotter. So that's why I say that the bomb are political activists, not scientists. All right, nearly there. Everybody relax. Muslim bird of ridiculosity.
With all due respect there, over its two, sometimes the comments actually come in way after a segment's finished because people are watching at different times as well. So sometimes I'm flicking through them when Bruce is on another segment. So that's all right. I try to keep on top of the comments as they come through, and sometimes they come through pretty thick and fast through all the different channels. So anyway, try and do what we can.
Yeah, but we're not actually here to give respect, I'm afraid. Respect is earned, not given. All right, where were we?
Carla's late. Got it, Carla.
Oh, is Carla here?
She just got here. Forgot. How rude.
Cool.
Talk about
All
respect.
Right.
Come on, Carla.
Hang on. Let me just flick this comment up. I'll flick it out again. There we go.
Muslim bird.
Oh, is that where we were?
I don't know.
Is that where we were? There we are.
Oh,
there we go. Okay. Muslim bird. Now, here's another story that will not die because what we've got again is more relentless systemic racism in the AFL. This time it's against Aboriginal players. You might remember last week it was against homosexual players, but this time it's Aboriginal players. And as we know, that is not okay unless, of course, you've got the victim trump card, which is the gay card, as we had the other week. So the criminal this time is St Kilda AFL coach Ross Lyon. And I'm just going to, have I got a present window? I want to share this.
I haven't. I'm not scamming any at the moment, so you should have all the windows you want.
Well, let's see what comes up.
Ross Lyon has revealed he offered to consider his position as St Kilda coach after making an offensive remark about the club's Indigenous players. Lyon's comments were so top secret, not even the Saints CEO knew until Channel 7 broke the story.
Close to tears, Ross Lyon was forced to sit down with St Kilda's 7 Indigenous players to apologise for an unsavoury comment fired off during training.
culture is really important and behaviour is really important, and I made an error unintentionally, resolved it with my players, and I'm thankful for their support.
Earlier this month, Lions said to 3 First Nations players, "I love the brother-boy connection, but we all have to remember we are part of a bigger team here." It upset the club's Indigenous cohort, senior leader Bradley Hill taking the frustrations of his teammates to the coach, prompting a meeting. So contrite, Lion offered to consider his position.
Hilly done a great job in going to Ross, and Ross accepted it and, apologised for it, and all the Indigenous boys accepted it.
I'm thankful for my players' support, and as a leader of the club, it's important that you get it right every time.
Superstar Nazai Wanganeen-Miller are quick to back his coach on social media. The Saints keeping the meeting in-house. Not even the club's CEO aware until Caroline Wilson's report on the agenda setters last night.
There's a lot of things that go on in a workplace, and people have disagreements, but they'll sort them out. And so not everything, raises to the surface.
What I learned is we're all only as good as our next moment, and it's good to be held to account. And for everyone in the AFL industry, we need to stay vigilant. It's not a bad thing.
Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
Oh dear. Now, what's my take on this? First off, Ross Lyon, gutless and pathetic. You have just become part of the problem by weakly backing down from a perfectly reasonable thing for a coach to say to a player. You've not only made the rest of your career more difficult, you've made it more difficult for every other coach in the country, because you have set the precedent that a certain prickly group doesn't have to obey the same rules as the rest of the team. That's what you've just done, mate. And I don't even really know what his word crime was, because he's a team coach. He's the head coach for St Kilda, right? Well, apparently this was his word crime. He said to a certain prickly group of players, a subset of the team, not the team, he said, "I love the brother-boy connection, but we all have to remember we are part of a bigger team here." So the team coach reminded players that they were part of a team.
Yes.
And then he instantly backed down and apologised, and he even, in fact, offered his resignation over this shocking word crime.
Wow.
Pathetic, Ross Lyon. Absolutely pathetic.
Well, what do you
Now-
expect at Victoria?
I'm still confused as to what his word crime was, so I just did a bit of digging around, and I did wonder whether it was the use of the word brother, because if you look at what he said, I love the brother-boy connection. Oh, sorry, brother-boy, but we all have to remember we're part of a team. Okay. Now, I know a few Afrikaner swear words because they come in handy at times. And one offensive thing you can say in Afrikaans is to call somebody Boetie. Now, Boetie means little brother, little boy, little brother. And in certain settings, you can use it with a friend. Like I can call you Boetie and it's like mate. Or if I say it in certain settings, it's derogatory. And the certain setting is if a white person calls an older black male Boetie, in other words, boy or little brother or boy, that's derogatory. You're demeaning that. Okay.
Yep.
Now, that's not the case here because Ross Lyon is older and he's in a position of authority. He is the team coach. And the ones he was talking about are younger, and in effect, they were a band of brothers, weren't they? That's how they presented. So I don't think this was the problem. And in fact, it clearly wasn't the problem because two other St Kilda officials used exactly the same term. So what you've got here is co-Callum Captain Wilkie, who said of the coach, he apologised and all the Indigenous boys accepted it. So I'm not saying him falling on his sword for using the word boy. And this was confirmed by the St Kilda CEO, Carl Delino, who said the same thing. It shows that he's running a pretty safe environment with our First Nations boys. So I don't think the word boy is the problem here, and brother, which goes along with it. That doesn't appear to be the problem because that seems to be acceptable within the club, right? So from what I can tell, the word crime that was committed by the team coach here was to tell his players that they were part of a team. That's all I'm left with.
Do you think so, wouldn't you? But
I'm mystified here. I really am mystified. And this is why I say, Ross Lyons, you are pathetic. You should never apologise for this. And because you did, you made your job harder than everyone else's by setting this as a standard when it should not be. You now have no authority as a coach because of a certain prickly subset of your players who get to tell you what you can and can't say. Now, in different circumstances, a person or a group of people who made these sort of outrageous, excessive demands unjustifiably might be labelled high maintenance. This thing is, high maintenance woman. And here's the description of a high maintenance person. So a person, item or system requiring excessive time, effort, money or attention to function properly or remain satisfied. Well, Ross Lyon, you've just enabled a high maintenance subset of your players that mean you can no longer coach effectively. And if I were the coach, I would be asking whether this high maintenance subset added enough value that it was actually worth retaining them. That's what I'd be doing. I'd be asking for their resignations instead of offering mine because they don't want to be team players.
Yep.
Bye, Alana. Nearly done.
Yep. High maintenance. It's just really just cowering to the bloody. I don't know whether it's just the money that he's attracted to. They're scared of losing position or whatever. It's just no backbone, like you say. You articulate it perfectly. Coward.
Yeah, absolute coward. All right. So to finish, what have we got here? This is still in the Uslam ridiculosity section. So put this in the gender madness file.
My Lord.
So on the left, Britain's first transgender family, whatever that is, has a 5-year-old who is also transitioning. All right.
Child abuse.
Child abuse. And on the right, even worse. So on the right, you've just got back from Planned Parenthood, received abortion medication. Doctor assured me that it was okay. As a trans woman, finding sources of euphoria can be hard. Having my abortion gave me so much joy and hope for the future. I love my aborted baby.
Yeah. It's just pure mental illness, man.
Surely that's got to be a parody, right? They've both got to be parodies, right? Were these both in the Babylon Bee? Because if this was serious, the world's done. It's over. We lost. Stick a fork in her. She's done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. It's getting that way, isn't it? Yep.
And to finish, doesn't the state sometimes threaten to remove children from parents because they refuse to vaccinate? And then does it sometimes vaccinate them after it's removed them? That's a thing in Australia. I mean, what's your experience, Mark?
Can prevent the state from vaccinating children removed from their care. Well, no. A lot of times it's unfortunately if they're being removed, depends on the parents. No, the state has control, mate.
You fought pretty hard during the COVID era to protect foster children. What did the state do to you?
Yeah, no, well, I lost my job. I protected mine. Couldn't protect the others though. But yeah, they come pretty hard. Their last message was to me that they were going to take him themselves, and this is a traumatized child, very anxious as well on the spectrum, and take him down to the doctors themselves with a social worker, and that was the last email. I copied Tony Nikolic into that as well, and other solicitors, and it didn't go any further past that point. But they were pretty determined right up in the end, because my reply was that I was going to go down to that surgery with them with my camera and record everything and all the valid consent that child would be giving in order for that vaccine to be taking place. But I saved them, but obviously there was hundreds of others that did receive it, unfortunately.
So we live in a world that celebrates child abuse in the form of this transgender family. Or if I can say one good thing about the transgender woman on the right celebrating her abortion, obviously no actual babies were harmed in the procurement of this abortion.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, luckily. Makes for a nice change, Bruce, hey? Makes for a nice change.
So compare and contrast the two situations, and then compare and contrast the two paradigms, the two worldviews. There's the government is a benign parent there to make sure I'm okay, versus they want to steal all my stuff and then make me dead. Which boxes do these go in?
The sad old state of affairs that we live in, eh?
It's very sad, mate. It's very sad.
Mental health is a big issue, and the people aren't getting enough support because they continue to be affirmed, Bruce. They continue to be affirmed. And it's all because of our media is behind it, and infiltrated bureaucratic departments that support and promote this affirmation model, and just forget about facts and reason and biological fact and science and everything else like that. It's about the feels. It's all about the feels, Bruce, not facts and figures.
And we saw that last week with the psychiatrist who's been suspended for 6 or 8 weeks for standing up against the gender madness.
Yep, absolutely. And of course, Gillian Spencer as well. She's just in the same position. Dr. Amos is getting a lot of traction at the moment, but I know that Gillian Spencer's copped it as well. So, yes, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate what you've brought. And look, this is just a reminder to everybody. If you're subscribed to the YouTube, you subscribe to the Cafe Locked Out Rumble. If you're subscribed to the Faith Culture Politics Rumble, you should get an alert within a couple of days to say that something's gone up. So encourage you to subscribe to that. So if you're not seeing it on Facebook, you're not getting alerts on X, then I suggest subscribing to the Rumbles and that YouTube channel. But obviously Rumble's given us the best run. So Faith Culture Politics and the Cafe Locked Out, obviously, who's grateful for Michael's platform for that as well. If you're subscribed to those, you'll get the alerts. And at the end of the day, just keep giving us the feedback. As I said, we try and do the best we can. We do this as a community service, so at the end of the day, if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. You can go off somewhere else. I'm pretty graceful. I'd love everybody to be here. Appreciate everybody that joins in, but if you don't like it, don't stick around. Simple as that. So it's pretty much where I stand, Bruce, and I know that you stand there the same. You put in countless hours of work unpaid, and we provide this as a community service, and get bugger all out of it, regardless of what people might think. We get stuff all. There is a couple of people that do support a little bit here and there, but and we'd love to continue. We'd love continuing to bring it out to you, but at the end of the day, not happy with it. See you later.
See you, Grifter.
God bless you, brother. Have a lovely week, and see you all next week.
To fight again for that already burned, he was driven towards the flames. All the signs are there for all to see. the signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away. Like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.